Chapter 5105. I suspect that you don't have any husband at all. The cold expression on the Devil Lord's face turned chilly. Moreover, I heard that you came all the way to Devil Head City to attend my wedding. Your motive is to snatch the bride, to snatch my husband, the Overlord. Am I right? When the last two words left her mouth, the Devil Lord raised his hand and clapped. Very quickly, there were two Devil Lord's guards, one on the left and one on the right, walking over. That person was Madame Huang Xi's previous personal maid, Hai Lan. Hai Lan was covered with injuries and her face was pale. When she saw the Devil Lord, she shrank back in fear. The Devil Lord's cold eyes looked at Hai Lan as he sneered, "Now, tell everyone what you heard in the madame's residence." When she saw Hai Lan coming out, Yi Qing Luo was completely sure. The reason why she almost fell off the horse. It was probably because of the two words, bride snatching, which spread to the Devil Lord's ears. Which aroused suspicion. This was obviously. This Devil Lord and that fake Overlord knew about it. The woman beside Dmo Xian was Yi Qing Luo. That was why he tried to test her, to find out if she was Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's expression remained unchanged as she calmly raised her slender brows. I'm not, don't be blind. Hai Lan's eyes widened. The entire madame's residence can testify that you came to Devil Head City to snatch the bride. Yi Qing Luo smiled and asked in reply, since I want to snatch the bride, why must everyone know about it? Are you afraid that the Devil Lord doesn't know that someone is going to snatch the bride? Moreover, if I spread the news that I'm going to Devil Head City to snatch the Overlord, even a maid like you knows about it, then wouldn't Madame know about it? If Madame knew about it and still brought me to Devil Head City, you mean Madame has the intention to disrupt the Devil Lord and Overlord Great Rao's marriage ceremony. Is this what you mean? Harlan's face turned pale as she questioned him word by word. No one had expected Yi Qing Luo to directly deny it. She even covered the entire pot. If this matter were to nod, then it wasn't just Yi Qing Luo alone who was suspected of snatching the bride. But it had risen to the height of the three Devil Continents and the Devil Lord. And, most importantly, if the Devil Hall were to forcefully push this responsibility onto Huang Sifu Rao, the Devil Hall would not be able to deal with him. It would definitely cause a backlash from the other two continents and other forces. After all, from Yi Qing Luo's interrogation, the situation had already changed. Madame Huang Xi was not a fool. How could he have known that his accompanying physician would stir up trouble on such an important occasion and even bring him here? If Fu Rao's accompanying doctor really wanted to kidnap the bride, he would definitely die. Huang Sifu took on the heavy responsibility. Most importantly, this was the wedding ceremony of the Lord of the Devil Hall and Dizun. How could a mere physician kidnap the bride? What a joke. Everyone would start to suspect. Was the Demon Hall trying to find an excuse to attack the Devil Continent? Thus, he rebounded completely. Hence, the Demon Hall could not acknowledge it. Yi Qing Luo's counter-question was reasonable and reasonable. No. You really went to Devil Head City to kidnap the bride. Your husband is Lord Dizun. You want to snatch your husband from Lord Devil Hall? Harlan shouted in disbelief. Her eyes widened as her face was filled with panic. She heard the whispers around her and the way they looked at her, as well as the peach-robed black-haired young lady in front of her, looking down at her from above. Chapter 5106. The defense in Hai Lan's heart completely collapsed. She turned towards the direction of the demonic palace and screamed in panic, "Lord Demonic Palace, please believe me, I am absolutely not lying, it's her, she said it herself, she wants to snatch the bride. I don't dare to lie to you." But there wasn't any emotion on the demonic palace's cold face. Her face was cold as she stared at Hai Lan for a long time. Finally, her voice was icy cold as she spoke in a dignified tone, "Whether it's true or false, I will decide." Her gaze flickered. The demonic guards understood as they carried Hai Lan up from both sides and dragged her down. Harlan naturally understood what would be waiting for her if she continued to drag this out. She kept crying and begging for mercy. Her voice slowly disappeared from the wedding ceremony. The crowd's discussion quietened down. For a moment, the atmosphere was stiff. The demonic palace held the groom's arm as she looked at Yi-Ching Luo coldly. A pair of icy cold eyes carried a few sharp blades. I wonder if Dr. Mu has heard of this saying. Yi-Ching Luo's lips curled. Please speak. There's no smoke without fire. She glanced sideways at the expressionless groom who was staring at Yi-Ching Luo with a burning gaze. If it wasn't for the fact that you really don't covet the overlord, why would there be such news? Most importantly, she paused slightly. Her tone suddenly turned sharp. The overlord seems to treat you differently. Yi-Ching Luo's expression remained unchanged. If he has the intention to frame me, there's no smoke without fire. As for why the groom is like this, I'm also very curious. She smiled slightly as she was very calm. Before today, the groom and I have indeed not met before, so. For this answer, I'm afraid Lord Demonic Palace has to ask the people around you. The Demonic Palace's exquisite brows creased slightly. There were some subtle changes on his expression. Suddenly, a sharp voice was heard from the crowd. Look at your vixen look, you only know how to seduce men at night. Who knows if you're taking the opportunity when Lord Demonic Palace isn't paying attention to give the overlord a flirtatious look. Following that, Jiang Shuang, who was dressed in a jade green long dress, rushed out in big strides. What do you mean you're a married woman? Call your husband out if you have the ability. I still want to ask him personally. Does he know that you've been seducing people outside? Jiang Shuanger's sharp words and stern countenance made the heavy atmosphere a little more turbulent. Yi-Ching Luo looked at Jiang Shuanger in surprise. Who would have thought that this woman would appear at this critical juncture? He was really stupid. Yi-Ching Luo gave a light laugh as she replied Jiang Shuanger's words calmly, I'm afraid. The minute my husband stands out, Big Sister Jiang's heart would be stirred and she would secretly send flirtatious glances towards my husband, so. In order to protect him, I can only hide him. Then, she gently stroked her cheeks with her slender fingers and said with a sweet smile, Does Big Sister Jiang mean that I'm good-looking? I also think that I'm very good-looking. However, Big Sister Jiang, you don't have to feel inferior. Even if you're ugly, with Big Sister Jiang's identity, you won't have to worry about no one marrying you. The girl's voice was soft and gentle, and her tone was very calm. But every single word that came out of her mouth was pricked right into Jiang Shuanger's heart. You. Jiang Shuanger was so angry that her face turned pale as she gritted her teeth and stared at her angrily. You're obviously feeling guilty. How could a normal married woman possibly be so ostentatious outside? Chapter 5107. As Jiang Shuanger spoke, her gaze shifted to Wing 9. You keep saying that you're already a married woman, but you're the former venerable the latter king hooked wing. You are a vixen. Who didn't know? The demon wing continent's wing king hated women the most. On top of that, his face was extremely bewitching. Very few women could surpass his peerless beauty. Because of this, there were rumors going around. The demon wing continent's wing king was a homosexual. This was probably the first time Zhong Rong saw the wing king being so intimate with a woman, right? Moreover, Yi Wang had even stretched out his hand to hold the young girl's wrist. Now that Jiang Shuanger mentioned it, everyone's gazes towards Yi-Ching Luo were filled with different emotions. Let's not talk about whether or not this girl seduced the overlord behind the devil hall's back. It was this young lady who kept saying that she was already a married woman, but she didn't know how to distance herself from Yi Wang. This was enough. That was enough for everyone to despise him. It was no wonder that the lord of the demonic hall would suspect her. Seeing that the surrounding guests were all standing on his side, Jiang Shuanger straightened her back proudly. What? Is it because you have no way to defend yourself? I'm just too lazy to talk to you, wasting my saliva. Yi-Ching Luo glanced at her indifferently, her eyes filled with indifference. It was as if he did not take Jiang Shuanger seriously at all. So in the demon domain, women are supposed to stay at home and take care of their husbands and children? Then, does this mean that after the devil hall and the groom get married, they should also hand over all the power of the devil hall to the groom? Yi Qing Luo's lips curled up as she retorted with a smile. Jiang Shuang'er didn't expect Yi Qing Luo to be so direct and wanted to refute. Don't explain. Yi Qing Luo impolitely interrupted her. What you said earlier revealed the meaning of this point. Yi Qing Luo spoke very quickly and in an imposing manner, absolutely suppressing Jiang Shuang. Although I'm a married woman, but that doesn't mean that I must stay by my husband's side. Furthermore, King Yi only looks up to me because of Fu Rao. Why did it become so unbearable in your mouth? I've heard a saying before. What a person sees is what he or she sees. You're dirty, so everything you see is dirty. Yi Qing Luo's explanation was so calm and composed. She was so calm that many people saw Wing Nine grab her wrist. They all felt that it was just an accident. When Yi Jiao heard this sentence, his thin lips curled upwards in a smile which didn't look like a smile, as he looked towards Yi Qing Luo. But ultimately he didn't expose Yi Qing Luo at this moment. Or to emphasize that Yi Qing Luo was his future princess, etc. Jiang Shuang'er didn't know how to refute. Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as she glanced at Devil Hall and smiled. Devil Hall also feel that after you and the groom get married, it will turn into internal affairs and you only need to revolve around this husband of yours? The Demon Palace. Of course not. The Devil Domain could allow Madame Huang Xi, the Devil Hall, and other similar women to wield power and become the ruler of a continent, or an existence that could keep the balance. Naturally, he acknowledged the woman's strength. Compared to the outside world, the demon region cared more about strength. The strong were respected. As long as one was strong enough, no matter if you were male or female, young or old, everyone would be willing to submit. Even if the woman got married, it wouldn't affect her own status. Yi Qing Luo's rhetorical question. It really made one unable to answer. Chapter 5108. The cold expression of the demon sovereign was incomparably gloomy. A pair of sharp and sinister eyes glared at Jiang Shuang'er. He gritted his teeth, this idiot. Jiang Shuang'er, who was being cut by the demon palace's malicious gaze, was so frightened that she couldn't stop trembling. He wanted to cry but had no tears. She clearly wanted to use this opportunity to curry favor with the demon hall and incite a conflict between the demon hall and that slut. This way, he could kill two birds with one stone. Not only could he gain the favor of the demonic palace, but he could also take the opportunity to get rid of that slut. But now, he had outsmarted himself. The demonic palace bore a grudge against her. At this moment, the atmosphere at the wedding ceremony was extremely strange. The guests did not know whether to leave or stay. No one spoke up to smooth things over. What a joke, at this critical juncture, who would dare to speak? This was a big wedding day, and the groom was going to regret it. The person who had their marriage annulled was the lord of the demon palace, who had the highest status in the demon domain. It was Di Zun who broke off the engagement in public. Di Zun had even grabbed a girl in public. He had broken off the engagement because of the girl. But the girl had explained it clearly. No matter how one looked at it, it seemed like Di Zun didn't want to marry the lord of the demonic palace, so he used her as cannon fodder. But now, even if they were cannon fodder, Di Zun pulled. This young lady would not be able to escape from being implicated. While everyone was lost in their thoughts, Devil Hall's red lips moved slightly as her eyes turned gloomy and cold as she stared at Yi Qing Luo and slowly opened her mouth. Dr. Mu need not confuse the public and change the topic. I don't care about what Big Sister Jiang said. She clasped the groom's arm tightly as her vision wandered between the groom and Yi Qing Luo, speaking in an icy cold tone. This highness only wants to know, this highness's groom, this highness's husband. Why would he embarrass this highness in public because of you? You have to ask him about that. Yi Qing Luo replied innocently. In any case, he would carry out the, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know anything, to the end. The demon hall pushed the groom. You. The bridegroom's elegant face was expressionless as that pair of surging black eyes stared deeply at Yi Qing Luo. He said nothing. The pressure on his body was also extremely low. Those who were close to him found it difficult to even breathe. However, under the deep and burning gaze of the bridegroom, the girl hooked her pink lips without the slightest pressure, crossed her arms over her chest, and smiled calmly. Is the groom still racking his brains to come up with an excuse? I want to see your husband. That man who maintained the low pressure and remained silent, opened his mouth after Yi Qing Luo's words ended. Immediately, the demon hall's expression became even uglier. He remained silent at her question. Instead, he answered the girl's questions at any time. The bridegroom had no intention of giving her face at all. Yi Qing Luo scoffed lightly. From the looks of it, it seems that if I don't prove that I have a husband today, you guys aren't going to let me off. Meet her husband? This was because he was suspicious of her identity and was certain that Dmo Xian would not appear here, hence he made such a request. Or was it because he was certain that she didn't have a husband? However, one thing was certain. It didn't matter if the demonic hall suspected her identity or if they were testing her. The other party did not intend to let her leave this place alive. Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes squinted unknowingly. Suddenly, a slight sound rang out in the silence of the wedding ceremony, where only the sound of breathing could be heard. That was the sound made by the chair rubbing against the ground. Chapter 5109. Someone moved. Everyone immediately looked towards the direction of the voice. They saw a seat at the corner. A fiery red figure slowly stood up. The man in the red robe had a tall and slender figure. He looked simple but luxurious. That grave and stern face was so cold that it was suffocating. He was Red Clear Pavilion's pavilion master, Zhu Wu Xian. Towards this pavilion master Chu. Everyone in the Devil region had heard of his deeds, but they weren't familiar with him. They only knew that he was a cold-hearted man. Pavilion Master Chu stood up at this moment. What was he trying to do? Could it be that he felt that the atmosphere was too depressing and the things that happened were too boring? So he wanted to leave? With Pavilion Master Chu taking the lead, the other guests who wanted to leave would have the chance. Just as everyone was thinking about this, that cold man in red robe wasn't heading towards the entrance of the wedding ceremony. Instead, he was heading towards the direction of the Devil Hall and the young lady. Everyone had a blank and puzzled expression. What was Pavilion Master Chu trying to do? Yi Qing Luo was also looking at Zhu Wu Xian. The moment she saw Zhu Wu Xian stand up, Yi Qing Luo's heart thumped. Based on her understanding of Zhu Wu Xian, this guy. Surely he wasn't intending to admit that he was her husband? Earlier at the splendid scene, she and Zhu Wu Xian were already very clear. Zhu Wu Xian should believe that she wasn't Yi Qing Luo. But now that Zhu Wu Xian stood up, once he admitted that he was her husband, then there would be no way to end this. If the other party suspected that she was Yi Qing Luo, then he would definitely know about Zhu Wu Xian's feelings towards Yi Qing Luo. At this moment, Zhu Wu Xian appeared. Basically, it was equivalent to peeling off her disguise. Although Zhu Wu Xian admitted it, it was probably to help her out of this predicament. But this was obviously a trap for her. The Devil Hall and the others had been staring at them. Yi Qing Luo couldn't give Zhu Wu Xian a meaningful glance. She could only frown as she looked at Zhu Wu Xian with an uneasy expression. Zhu Wu Xian seemed as though he didn't receive her offensive glare. Step by step, he got closer. Finally, he stood in the middle of the Devil Hall and Yi Qing Luo, about 3 steps away, and stopped. Wearing a bright red robe at someone else's wedding ceremony? Perhaps only Zhu Wuxin could do so. Most importantly, Zhu Wuxin was dressed in such a simple manner. They were even more dazzling than the newlyweds in front of them. The Demon Queen frowned. Pavilion Master Chu, Zhu Wu Xian's gaze unhurriedly fell onto Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo knitted her brows tightly. This girl really wanted to acknowledge him as her husband. She pursed her pink lips, and before Chu Wuxin could open his mouth, she spoke first, Pavilion Master Chu, before he could say anything. Suddenly, a familiar sandalwood scent lingered in his nose. Yi Qing Luo's heart inexplicably trembled. Is that kind of palpitating happiness? Even the profound phoenix ring, which was still dim, was slightly scorching her. The words that were about to come out of his mouth stopped because of these strange feelings. That pair of long and narrow eyes overflowed with joy. She lowered her head and looked at her white fingers. The profound phoenix ring's radiance was still dim. But that scorching feeling was definitely not an illusion. It was. Ah, Xian. Had he come? Yi Qing Luo totally didn't care about the person in front of her. Instead, she immediately turned around and searched the surroundings, attempting to find that familiar figure. Chapter 51:10. The joy and agitated expression on the young lady's face were all taken in by Zhu Wu Xian. His cold and handsome face was covered with a layer of haze. He naturally could tell. The young lady's joy and agitation wasn't directed at him. He was staring at the unfamiliar delicate face in front of him. Every smile and frown was totally different from the young lady in his memory. Even her voice was different. However, he was able to superimpose the two of them together. Chu Wu Xian lowered his eyes slightly as he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Dash, thud, thud, thud. A set of slow footsteps was heard from afar. That sounded like the footsteps of some magical beast. The footsteps were slow, neither fast nor slow. Someone was here again. Everyone looked towards the direction of the sound. Thud, thud. The footsteps were getting nearer. A figure entered the main door of the wedding ceremony, which was made of flowers, and entered everyone's eyes. As compared to when Zhu Wu Xian stood up, it was even more eye-catching. Then, everyone saw a pig's head. Yes, they didn't see it wrongly. It was a pig's head that popped into the main door. The pig's head shook its two pink and tender pig ears, and a pair of pig's eyes darted around. Its body was like a hedgehog's hair as it spread out loosely. The entire pig had a relaxed posture. The crowd was in an uproar. Coming to attend the Lord Demon Hall and the Overlord Great Rao's wedding, and riding a mount into the wedding ceremony? Forget about the mount. But it was a pig. One by one, their gazes which were staring at that pig's head shifted away, indicating that they weren't too interested. But Madame Huang Xi's gaze, which was staring at that pig, was unblinking. That pig. Why did it look familiar? It seemed like that pig in her house? Zhu Sha. The young lady had already opened her mouth and called out that pig's name. When the young lady's voice rang, that tender pig ears instantly stood up. Following that pair of pig eyes looked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Yuan Lu's shiny black pig eyes were filled with excitement. It moved its hooves as it pounced towards Yi Qing Luo. With this leap, the whole pig entered the scene of the wedding ceremony. Everyone saw it. Sitting on the pig's body was a tall and slender figure. His bamboo-colored gown hung down and rested on the back of a pig that was as fluffy as a porcupine. His face was young and innocent, and his eyebrows were as black as ink. She had a pair of blue eyes that were as clear as water, like sapphire, and a pair of captivating red lips. His entire person was breathtaking, so obedient that it made one want to dote on him. What a handsome man. Who was this? When did such an obedient and handsome man appear in the infernal domain? The man riding on the pig trod on the ground covered with petals with a da-da-da sound. Then, it stopped beside Zhu Wuxin. He jumped down from Cinnabar's back. The bamboo-colored robe flowed down, leaving behind a streak of green. His voice was low and hoarse, as if it was mellow in wine. He was careless, but there was also a formless pressure on him. Listen, you want to see me? A voice that was neither too fast nor too slow resounded throughout the ceremony. Meet him? Everyone was still a little confused, not understanding what the man meant. But they heard the man's next sentence, I am Yu-er's husband, Chow Yun. His gaze looked straight at Yi-Ching Luo. Following that, he stretched out his arms towards the young lady as he gave an obedient and pure smile, Wife, I'm sorry, I'm late. Everyone drew in a breath of cold air. This man was actually Dr. Mu's husband. Chapter 51:11. The people from the Devil Hall kept on shouting that they had never seen Dr. Mu's husband before. She also believed that Dr. Mu's claim that she was a married woman was just an excuse to deny that she had any relationship with Di Zun. Who would have thought that Physician Mu's husband would really appear? Moreover, this man looked very obedient and harmless. Compared to the young girl who was as pretty as a picture but had sharp words, they didn't seem to be from the same world. However, just as everyone was immersed in their own thoughts. Just a moment ago, she was still arrogant and confident, and her words were sharp as she faced the demon hall and the doubts of the people around her. She was like a goddess of war. It flew towards the man with the delicate and obedient face. The girl, who was as pretty as a picture and looked like the girl next door, finally revealed her feminine side. Then, she threw herself into the man's arms and hugged. Yi-Ching Luo buried her head in the man's chest, inhaling the familiar sandalwood fragrance, her long and narrow eyes curved, You're back. The girl's voice was soft as she said those words. Like a huge bell, it pounded on the man's heart. Dmo Xian's eyes were gentle as he slightly lowered his eyes, congealing the young lady's face, his voice gentle, Yes, I'm back. His big palm covered the back of the girl's head, tightly hugged her slender waist. I missed you. Me too. Yi-Ching Luo's lips curled up into a smile, becoming more and more radiant. Seeing that Dmo Xian was safe and sound. His heart, which had been hanging in the air, was finally at ease. The demonic hall spread the news of his marriage with Di Zun. Yi-Ching Luo had been worried that Dmo Xian had met with some danger, otherwise how would the Devil Palace possibly have the guts to create a fake overlord to marry her? Moreover, Dmo Xian had not gone to the Devil Forest to look for her. There was no news of him either. She couldn't help but think about it more. Now, he was relieved. You're Dr. Mu's husband? Just as the two of them were being affectionate, the demon hall's questioning voice rang out, How do you prove it? She stared at the man suspiciously, her eyes cold. This girl, did she really have a so-called husband? Then, was she really not? The demon royal palace frowned. Her cold and beautiful eyes glanced sideways at the groom beside her. If that girl was as he had guessed. When she saw the groom, it was impossible for her to remain indifferent. Time and time again to test the waters. The other party's behavior made her doubt her conjecture. At this moment, when the girl's husband appeared, she was starting to waver. This was because she could see that the moment the man appeared, his expression changed. The light in the depths of the young girl's eyes and the way she looked at the man. It couldn't be faked. The man who had suddenly appeared was indeed the person that the young girl valued the most. Dmo Xian held onto Yi-Ching Luo's waist as he slightly raised his eyes, looking towards the Devil Hall, and beside her, that man who bore a striking resemblance to the Overlord. He furrowed his brows and pursed his red lips. The Demon Hall also noticed it. The moment the man lifted his eyes and shifted his gaze away from the girl, the man's azure eyes, which were as clear as the ocean, suddenly surged with a turbulent wave. It was like a whirlpool. The moment their gazes met, Yi Zichen's heart sank. She even felt an indescribable fear welling up from the depths of her heart. That's right. It was fear. She, the dignified lord of the Devil Hall, controlled the entire Devil region. At this moment, she was actually afraid of a seemingly innocent and harmless man. This knowledge made the Devil Hall's heart thump fiercely. A woman's intuition told her. This man wasn't simple. Chapter 51:12. Demonic Palace's mind was filled with thoughts as she sized up the man in front of her seriously. She heard the man's mellow and husky voice, without any emotions, but filled with an unexplainable domineering aura. What has the relationship between my wife and me got to do with you? Why do I need to prove it to you? Demonic Palace's face turned cold. Ever since she became the lord of the Demonic Palace, it had been a long time since she met someone who dared to go against her. Her cold and elegant eyes stared at Dmo Xian's seemingly obedient and harmless face, as her voice was deep and treacherous. Today, is this palace lord's and Sir Overlord's marriage ceremony. She seduced the Overlord, and made the Overlord to publicly regret this palace lord's marriage for her. Now that you've come out and said that you're her husband, what's wrong with me asking you for proof? The man's face didn't show much emotion. On this point, he was rather similar to the expressionless groom beside her. Demonic Palace pondered for a moment before continuing. If you're really her husband, then, you should stand on my side and ask her how she hooked up with the Overlord. Dmo Xian's azure blue eyes turned incomparably sharp as he listened to the woman's words. Demonic Palace thought that he was enraged because of her words. Her cold and elegant red lips unconsciously curled up into a contented smile. But the next moment, she saw the man embracing the young lady in an absolutely protective manner as he encircled her in his arms. His gaze was cold as he stared at Demonic Palace. It's your incompetence that you can't take good care of your own groom. Don't blame your incompetence on my wife. He paused slightly before continuing. You said that my wife seduced the groom, show me the proof. Incompetence, these two words were deeply embedded in Demonic Palace's mind. The groom broke the engagement on the spot of the wedding ceremony. It wasn't just the groom's problem. The bride had indeed failed. Demonic Palace didn't say a word. Dmo Xian glanced at the groom with a smile that didn't look like a smile as he spoke in a mocking tone. Finally, because I'm her husband. No matter what happens, I will stand by her side unconditionally. And, I believe in her. My wife, I dote on her. You, who do you think you are? Every single word of his was trampling on the face of the demon hall. It was extremely humiliating. Some were angry, some were happy. When these words fell into Yi Qing Luo's ears, it was like the sweetest honey in the world, sweet right into her heart. The girl's face was as beautiful as a painting. Her long and narrow eyes were curved, and the joy emitted from the bottom of her heart. Not far away, Yi Jiu and Zhu Wuxin saw it clearly. Light flowed in Zhu Wuxin's cold and deep eyes. In the end, they turned into a pool of stagnant water that was as still as water. They sank and could no longer cause any ripples. Yi Jiu propped up his chin with interest and clicked his tongue as he muttered to himself, Aya, it's rare for a girl to fancy, but she already has someone in her heart. This king's future princess has run away again, what a pity. So, you've disrupted my wedding ceremony, and I can't pursue the matter? Demonic Palace sneered as he pushed the groom aside forcefully. Do you see that? This is the girl you want. She already has a husband and doesn't even want to take a look at you. The groom staggered a few steps from the push. His face was gloomy as his deep eyes stared angrily at Demonic Palace. His low and hoarse voice was filled with threat. Demonic Palace, if you still want the wedding to continue, then shut up. Demonic Palace opened his mouth but swallowed back his words. That cold and elegant face was covered with a thick layer of haze. Chapter 51:13. Heh. In this strange silent atmosphere, a soft heh was especially obvious. Devil Palace and the groom's vision turned over in unison. The frost in their eyes was like a sharp blade. Dmo Xian's expression was calm as he met their gazes, his dark red lips curled into a casual cold arc. That soft heh came from his mouth. Devil Palace, you should rejoice. This wedding is now interrupted. The man's voice carried a hint of indifference and laziness, as if he was mocking something. Devil Palace's expression sunk, not understanding the man's words. Dmo Xian's gaze fell onto the groom as he gave a mocking smile. An impostor, dare to impersonate the Overlord in the Devil region. You've got some guts. Dmo Xian's words left his mouth. Instantly it set off a huge uproar. Everyone looked at the groom in disbelief. Imposter? Impersonate the overlord? This Dizun is a fake. How could this be possible? What rubbish are you talking about? Devil Palace berated sternly as his eyes were filled with a chilly intent. Whether it's rubbish or not, Devil Palace will find out soon. DMO Xian's tone was indifferent as he looked at the groom with a smile which didn't look like a smile. I wonder if this groom needs to quibble a little? The groom's gaze was cold and there was no expression on his handsome face. His ink-black eyes were like a sharp blade. I don't need to explain. He had learnt the overlord's cold and aloof attitude. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly as she stared at the groom without blinking. Her eyes were filled with deep meaning. Actually, this imposter overlord. There was really no difference between him and DMO Xian. No matter if it was in terms of appearance or character, it was almost a copy. Even when he was testing if she was Yiqing Luo. That emotion, that expression, that feeling. It was exactly the same as what DMO Xian had expressed. If it wasn't for the fact that she had an inexplicable intuition towards DMO Xian. Plus her absolute trust towards DMO Xian. She was afraid that when she saw this groom at the wedding venue, she really knew how to create trouble and ruin the venue. Wait. Copy? Yiqing Luo suddenly thought of something as her slender fingers clasped DMO Xian's wrist tightly. The man lowered his head and looked at her. Yiqing Luo took a look at the groom as she suppressed her voice. That groom might be some kind of sorcery, a replica. This was similar to what she knew about clones in the 21st century. He had inherited the original owner's appearance, personality, and memories. Only then could they achieve a 100% similarity. However, in the end, a replica was just a replica. As long as he paid a little attention, he would be able to tell. But what Yiqing Luo was conflicted about was, if this groom before her eyes was really a replica of DMO Xian. Then was DMO Xian's profound grade also copied over? If that was the case, the bridegroom's strength was too strong. DMO Xian lightly patted the back of her hand and smiled. I'm here, everything's fine. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes. He nodded at him, relieved. For DMO Xian to say this, it meant that he already had a plan in mind. He probably already knew the identity of the groom. Madame Huang Xi. The demon lord was furious. He pointed his gun at Huang Xi. This is the guest you brought? You're determined to disrupt my wedding, aren't you? Huang Xi was a little dazed when she was called out. She was the clearest about Yiqing Luo's motive for coming to Devil Head City. She was indeed here for the overlord. Chapter 51:14. Now, another husband had appeared out of nowhere. And she could tell that their relationship was very good. They were a couple who loved each other deeply. Then, the bride snatching and mess up the place? Were they all lying to her? Huang Xi's heart was filled with complex emotions. She took a step forward and looked at the Devil Lord's enraged face. My accompanying doctor is definitely not someone who would purposely cause trouble. Dr. Mu's husband's words are definitely not to cause trouble for the Devil Lord. Huang Xi still chose to believe in Yiqing Luo unwaveringly. She deliberated over her words and said, Demonic Lord, just like what you said, there's no smoke without fire. Dr. Mu's husband actually questioned the emperor. Questioned the groom's identity. There must be a reason behind it. For Demonic Lord's lifetime happiness, it's best for Demonic Lord to investigate this. Demonic Lord's eyes were sinister as he sneered, there's no smoke without fire. All right. This lord shall give you a chance. Tell me, why is this groom an imposter? She flicked her sleeves and sat on a chair by the side. If you don't give me a clear proof today, the both of you, as well as the people from the Devil Phoenix continent, don't even think of leaving Devil Head City. Demonic Lord's imposing manner was overbearing as his words were filled with rage. There were quite a number of people from the Devil Phoenix continent. After hearing this sentence, their faces revealed a panicked expression. All of them were grumbling incessantly. But the young couple who stood in front of demonic lord were calm and composed. Dmo Xian's dark red lips curled up as he spoke calmly. Unfortunately, I and the overlord in God realm have a drinking relationship, so we're not strangers. Coincidentally, my wife and I followed the overlord to the devil region to handle some matters, but we didn't expect to hear the news of the overlord getting married to the demonic lord. Yiqing Luo continued the conversation as she looked at the groom with ridicule. You imposter, you think that the overlord doesn't care about his own reputation, so you're so unbridled, right? She scoffed, using the overlord's name to get married to the demonic lord. What a good plan. The groom's expression was gloomy and cold as he emitted an invisible aura, creating an oppressive might. Unfortunately, you've only missed 1 point. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up as she took a look at Dmo Xian. Her eyes were tainted with a few traces of ridicule. The two of them looked at each other. Dmo Xian already knew the young lady's plan. His blue eyes, which were as clear as the sea, gradually softened, revealing a doting expression. Yiqing Luo raised her chin. Her tone was filled with an imperceptible pride. The current overlord already has someone in his heart. How could he bear to let the woman he loves misunderstand him? So, why would the overlord spare a fake like you? The demon hall's sinister gaze shot over. It's just the two of you talking. Who knows what the truth is? What's the point of talking so much nonsense? Show us the evidence first. Dmo Xian glanced at the groom as his dark red lips moved. I think everyone knows what the overlord's war pet is. The bridegroom's deep eyes flickered and he said coldly, Xiaojiu. A snow-white nine-tailed holy beast. It could be said that it was the symbol of a venerable sovereign. This point, everyone who knew about venerable sovereigns knew. After the groom set out the nine-tailed fox's name, he continued, I came to the devil region to get married to the demon hall, so I didn't bring Xiaojiu along. So if you want to use Xiaojiu to prove my identity, I'm afraid that won't work. Chapter 51:15. Dmo Xian's blood-red lips curled into a casual smile. Oh? Really? That seemingly obedient and harmless face revealed a hint of mockery at this moment. His gaze was still cold. Especially when he looked at the groom. Even if he was smiling, the smile didn't reach his eyes. At this moment, the groom's calm face finally showed some signs of change. He frowned as he stared at Dmo Xian, as though he was probing into something. At this moment, Dmo Xian raised his hand. His bamboo-colored sleeves fluttered, creating a smoke-like ripple. Howl, a clear beast's howl broke through the sky. Soon after, a snow-white nine-tailed fox descended from the sky, stepping on blazing sparks as it arrived majestically. As the wedding venue was built in Devil Head City's biggest public square, it had a heavenly layout. The nine-tailed fox landed accurately beside Dmo Xian. Its 4 limbs landed on the ground as its 9 tails swayed in the wind. It was awe-inspiring and shocking. Although there were quite a number of guests present, they had only heard of the overlord's mount, the nine-tailed fox, but had never seen it. But they had seen quite a number of them. When they saw that nine-tailed fox, quite a number of guests drew in a cold breath. That was indeed the overlord's mount. That seemingly obedient and harmless man, who on earth was he? What relationship did he have with the overlord? Why was he able to summon the overlord's battle pet? And even able to instruct the overlord's battle pet? When she saw little Nine, Yiqing Luo already understood Dmo Xian's intention. Her lips curled as she continued Dmo Xian's words. The overlord is already aware of this matter and specially asked my husband to bring little Nine over to verify. Who is this impostor who married the devil hall? Yiqing Luo's slender hand raised as she pointed to the groom. Little Nine, go over and take a look. Is that your master? The last 2 words. The young lady's soft voice was melodious, but there was an obvious sense of ridicule in it. Her long and narrow eyes were filled with a playful sneer. Little Nine proudly raised that huge fox head. The fluffy fur was translucent and soft. That pair of blood-colored eyes looked towards the direction of the groom. The 9 tails swayed gently. The guests who were in a heated discussion all held their breaths and stared at the space between 9-tailed fox and the groom. He was extremely nervous. The instant little 9 appeared, the scales in everyone's hearts were swaying left and right. Dr. Mu and his wife were deliberately disrupting the wedding and spreading rumors that the overlord was an impostor. Then, how could the sovereign's battle pets listen to Dr. Mu and his wife? That 9-tailed fox had been the overlord's battle pet for many years. It was a battle pet that had signed a soul contract with His Majesty. On top of that, the 9-tailed fox was a sacred beast, and it was born with pride. Other than Dizun, no one else's orders would be obeyed. Thus, the 9-tailed fox obediently followed Dr. Mu and his wife. It must be His Majesty's order. As for the overlord, everyone looked at the groom again. If the bridegroom was really a fake, how dare he impersonate the overlord? She even pretended to marry a lord of the demon palace. This was not something that could be explained by courage. Little 9 took 1 step at a time towards the direction of the bridegroom. The fluffy and soft 9 tails were swaying non-stop. That footstep, 1 step at a time, was gentle and graceful. Until the moment it got close to the bridegroom. Bam! A majestic profound ray struck down horizontally. Chapter 51:16. The bridegroom, who was dressed in a red robe, suddenly flew backward. Little 9 was stopped by a ray of profound light. The groom's figure had already leaped to the outside of the wedding hall. This action, it also proved that he was, without a doubt, an impostor. If he really was the overlord, why would he be afraid of little 9's approach? How could he escape? Catch that impostor! A voice came out of nowhere from the crowd. At that moment, all the guests rushed towards the direction of the groom. The moment the groom turned around and fled, the cold and elegant face of the demonic palace was covered with a thick layer of haze. That pair of beautiful but malicious eyes stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. As the crowd chased after the groom, she gritted her teeth and spat out 3 words, "Men, chase after him." The demon guards rushed forward to capture them. Following that, she looked at Yi Qing Luo and spoke ruthlessly, "I didn't expect this Mr. Chow to have such a good relationship with the overlord, even allowing you to bring his battle pet along." Yi Qing Luo nodded smilingly, "That's natural. The relationship between my husband and the overlord is something you can't imagine. How could they have imagined? These 2 people were the same person." The demon palace sneered, "Since young Master Chow said that the Dizun is in the demon domain, why did he only let the 2 of you come to my wedding ceremony when he knew that there was an impostor?" She paused for a moment, then raised her voice. "Moreover, since the venerable sovereign has come to the devil area, shouldn't I do my duty as a host?" Heh, Yi Qing Luo didn't give him any face as she chuckled. Her long and narrow eyes curved into a mocking arc. Her pink lips curled up, but her voice was soft and harmless as she said, "Lord Devil Palace, but such a small matter doesn't seem to require Lord Dizun to personally deal with it, right? Moreover, since the overlord sent my husband here to resolve this matter, it means that the overlord doesn't want to be disturbed." She was just short of saying it directly. "Who do you think you are? Was it worthy for the divine venerable to show up in person?" "Ha, ha." How would the devil palace not understand the meaning in Yi Qing Luo's words? Her face immediately darkened. The wide sleeves of the red wedding robe wrinkled in her palms. Yi Qing Luo seemed as though she couldn't see Devil Hall's murderous gaze. Instead she smiled as she continued, "Devil Hall, if it wasn't for the fact that my husband appeared in time, I'm afraid you would have to marry a fake overlord. So, shouldn't you thank me and my wife? I saved your future happiness." The demon lord was so angry that he almost vomited blood. "Thank you? Thank my ass. Because of the 2 of them." Her fiend hall had already become the joke of the entire fiend realm. How was she going to convince the masses in the future? When it came to the demon realm's demon palace, people would only think of a woman who married a fake venerable sovereign. But she couldn't have a fit. The nine-tailed fox, the venerable sovereign's battle pet, was still at the wedding. Marrying the fake Dizun would be a disgrace to Dizun's reputation. If she flared up now, when it came to the venerable sovereigns, it would be seen as coveting the venerable sovereigns. She hadn't forgotten what Dr. Mu had mentioned. The overlord had a woman he loved deeply, so much that he couldn't bear to let that woman misunderstand him. Which was her motive this time round, Yi Qing Luo. Thinking in this way, the Devil Palace forcefully suppressed the anger in her. That cold and elegant face became slightly distorted because of this. Chapter 51:17. Indeed, I should be thanking you. When the Devil Palace said these words, it was as though she was gritting her teeth. She took a deep breath and continued, so, I want to thank the both of you properly. Her vision glanced towards the servant, bring Dr. Mu and Master Chow to stay in the most prestigious palace in the Devil Domain. I will definitely thank the both of you properly, to stop the tragedy of me marrying the fake overlord. Yi Qing Luo heard the malicious intent in the Devil Palace's words and was about to reject. But her wrist tightened. Dmo Xian's large palm squeezed her palm as he smiled at her. Yi Qing Luo stopped her words of rejection and allowed the servant to lead the way. Dr. Mu. Madame Huang Xi's eyes were filled with worry as she called out to Yi Qing Luo. Anyone could tell that the Devil Palace wasn't sincere in thanking them. Once this couple stayed in the Devil Palace, it would probably bode ill rather than well. Yi Qing Luo took a look at Madame Huang Xi and was about to walk towards her. But she was stopped by the servant. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. I'm Madame's accompanying doctor, and now that I have to separate from Madame, can't I even remind Madame of a few things to take note of? Although her words were directed at the servant. But it was obviously in the Devil Inquiry Hall. The servant remained unmoved. It was until the Devil Palace nodded to the servant that the servant let go. Yi Qing Luo sneered as she walked past the servant towards Madame Huang Xi. She lightly touched Huang Xi's hand as she spoke in a low voice. You and Zhu Sha leave Devil Head City first and return to Devil Phoenix Continent. Follow the method I taught you, soak for 4 hours every day, and after a long time, your body will definitely improve. I can't. Madame Huang Xi hadn't managed to say the word leave. The young lady's pink lips curled as she interrupted her words. Your body isn't well, so there's no point in staying here. Why not go back to Devil Phoenix Continent to recuperate and wait for me and my husband to look for you? Saying that, she squeezed Madame Huang Xi's hand. Madame Huang Xi's elegant face was filled with melancholy, but she could only sigh softly as she nodded her head. Yi Qing Luo reminded her with concern before returning to Dmo Xian's side. Following that, the servant left. At this moment, it was not appropriate for the guests to discuss anything in front of the demon hall. Then, the crowd dispersed. Huang Xi's face was filled with worry as she followed the crowd and left the wedding ceremony. After leaving, the melancholy on her face immediately disappeared, and a trace of coldness flashed across her eyes. She glanced sideways at Hai Yun and Zhu Sha. Let's go. Return to the Demon Phoenix Continent immediately. Just as he finished speaking, he heard a low voice filled with ridicule. Tisk, Miss Mu's heart is all for you, but when Miss Mu was in danger, all you thought of was to leave Devil Head City. Madame Huang Xi. Has she become so timid? A man in a white robe appeared in the corner ahead. The man's long silver hair spread out on his shoulders. It made the man's handsome face look even more devilish. Yi Wang? Huang Xi frowned slightly. Why are you following me? If I hadn't followed you, I wouldn't have known that Madame was such a cowardly person. Yi Jiu chuckled, but his tone was mocking. Huang Xi's expression did not change as she calmly replied, whatever you say. Saying that, she walked past Yi Jiu with the intention to leave. But Yi Jiu went up to stop her. Are you really going to leave Miss Mu like that? Huang Xi pursed her lips slightly as that elegant face turned slightly pale. She fixed her gaze on Yi Jiu. Then, if it's Yi Wang, how confident are you to bring Dr. Mu and his wife out of the demon hall safe and sound? Chapter 51:18. Yi Jiu's expression froze as he fell into silence. Huang Xi said indifferently, "If we act rashly, not only will we not be able to guarantee the safety of Dr. Mu and his wife, even I will not be able to escape." "So you've decided to ignore her?" Yi Jiu frowned, his face full of disapproval. Huang Xi suddenly laughed. "Why does Yi Jiu care so much about Dr. Mu?" "Yi Jiu," Huang Xi continued, "Dr. Mu already has a husband, and she has a good relationship with young Master Chao. I'm afraid Yi Jiu has no chance. It's true that this king admires Lady Mu, but it's not to the extent of stealing someone else's love." Yi Jiu waved his sleeves. "This king is only worried about Lady Mu. I'm also worried about her." Huang Xi lowered her head. Yi Jiu should have heard what Dr. Mu said just now. "So?" Yi Jiu asked. Huang Xi said, "Did Yi Jiu not hear the hidden meaning behind Dr. Mu's words?" Yi Jiu thought for a moment, but still did not understand. "What do you mean?" Huang Xi was about to speak. Suddenly, an ice-cold voice that seemed to be wrapped in frost came from behind the two of them. "Miss Mu's meaning is that, with Madame's strength alone, it is impossible to do anything. Why not return to the Demon Phoenix continent and borrow the power of the Demon Phoenix continent to restrain the Demon Hall?" That cold and indifferent voice caused both of them to be stunned, and they immediately turned their heads around. Then, they saw the expressionless, ice-cold man walking towards them. Yi Jiu frowned. "It's you again. Pavilion Master Chu, you're really persistent." Zhu Wuxin did not even look at Yi Jiu, but looked at Huang Xi indifferently. "Madam, with the Demon Phoenix continent and the Red Clear Pavilion, do you have the confidence to overthrow Demon Head City's rule over the Demon Domain?" When these words came out of Zhu Wuxin's mouth, Huang Xi and Yi Jiu were shocked. Huang Xi and Yi Jiu were so shocked that they couldn't regain their senses for a long time. When they finally reacted to Zhu Wuxin's words, their expressions changed. "Pavilion Master Chu, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. If others hear your words, it'll be terrible." Zhu Wuxin expressionlessly repeated, "Just give me one sentence. Do you have the confidence or not?" Another period of silence. Huang Xi pursed her pale lips and clenched her fingers. "Pavilion Master Chu, how confident are you?" "Madam?" Yi Jiu furrowed his brows and reprimanded in a low voice. Did Huang Xi's words mean that she really wanted to join forces with the Red Clear Pavilion to overthrow the Devil Hall? Huang Xi's expression was resolute. Today's matter has already turned the demonic lord into a joke. She will definitely not let this matter rest so easily. She will definitely not let Physician Mu and his wife off. Most importantly, the Demon Palace has long since planned to invade the Demon Realm and rule it alone. Huang Xi raised her eyes and looked at Yi Jiu. "Don't tell me you haven't noticed these abnormalities." Wing Nine fell silent. How could he not have sensed it? The movements of the Demon Hall were not big, but they were definitely not small either. The rulers of the three devil continents knew what they were doing. They were also secretly prepared. But no one pointed it out. Huang Xi didn't look at Yi Jiu anymore. Instead, she looked at Zhu Wuxin. "What's the relationship between Pavilion Master Chu and Physician Mu? Why, do you want to help her?" Zhu Wuxin lowered his eyes, his voice cold and somewhat hollow. "For her, I should be a problem." Devil Hall Castle, within a luxurious palace. Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian sat on the chair. Yi Qing Luo sized up the surrounding environment. This palace, as compared to Huang Xi's courtyard, was much more luxurious and exquisite. It was more like an exquisite cage. Yi Qing Luo didn't need to walk out to guess. There were probably quite a number of devil guards guarding the entrance of this palace. Chapter 51:19. Not to mention that there were quite a number of devil guards hidden in the dark. Since Yi Qing Luo had followed the servants to this place, she had no intention to escape. Anyway, Xian was by her side. She had no fear. Yi Qing Luo sat on the redwood chair and placed the palm-sized 9 on the tea table. Her fair fingers were fiddling with the soft fur on Nine's body. Nine's 4 legs were facing downwards and its 9 soft tails were wrapped around Yiqing Luo's hand. Its feet were also pulling her hand. Yiqing Luo was having a great time playing. Ever since she changed her looks. She didn't see her family's few war beasts. Especially when they reached the devil's domain, her connection with the war beasts was cut off. Seeing Nine made her think of her adorable Chi-Chi, Tsundra Chi-Yen and those adorable war beasts. Why did you come here alone? Dmo Xian's azure blue gem-like eyes were fixated on her without blinking. It was as if she was the only one he could see in his eyes. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes as her fingers pinched one of Nine's tails while smiling. If I didn't come, how would I know? That you're getting married. She paused and smiled. The marriage partner, isn't it me? The surroundings of the palace were filled with devil spies. Now that Dmo Xian had asked directly, it was obvious that he had set up an enchantment to block off those devil guards spying. Yiqing Luo was assured as she replied. My marriage partner is only you. The man's voice was mellow as his eyes were filled with love. Yiqing Luo stopped fiddling with Nine as her eyelids lifted as she stared at the man. Then why did you leave me behind and leave alone? I thought I would be able to return as soon as possible. Dmo Xian explained warmly, but, when I returned, there were no signs of you in the devil's forest and beside. There were quite a number of devil's corpses. The gentleness in his eyes deepened, at that time. My heart was in a mess. The obedient and harmless-looking man's eyes were filled with gentleness, as though water could be squeezed out. It made the man look especially young and tender. It made one want to pull him into one's embrace and cherish him. Yiqing Luo's stare was a little uncontrollable. Although she was used to seeing this face along the way. But after not seeing him for so long. At this moment, he took a closer look. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but burst out laughing. The dignified Di Zun had such a harmless face. If the news got out, even venerable sovereign's dignity would be affected. Let's see if you still dare to abandon me on your own. Yiqing Luo's heart was in a mess, but her words were full of threats. Dmo Xian shook his head. I won't do it again. I'm already scared this time, there won't be a next time. Even if she fainted again. He would carry her and walk with her. His Luo heir, he was someone who would never let others be at ease. It was best to keep him by her side. Yiqing Luo nodded smilingly. It's good that you know to be afraid. Then, he changed the topic. What did you do during the time you were away? Profound flame pivot diagram. Dmo Xian spat out 5 words. Yiqing Luo's eyelids twitched as she unconsciously loosened her grip on 9 tails. She sat up straight. Have you found the lair of the mystic dragon? Not yet, but I have some clues. Dmo Xian's expression congealed slightly. I can roughly confirm the location, but the Devil's Palace's marriage a few days ago made me have a bad premonition. Yiqing Luo nodded. At this juncture, the Devil's Palace got married, moreover it's with an impostor. It really makes one ponder deeply. Chapter 51-20. Initially, Yiqing Luo was just guessing. Devil Palace wanted to make use of this marriage ceremony as an opportunity. Making use of the opportunity to trap the various powerhouses who came to attend the wedding ceremony. So as to catch them all in one fell swoop. But later on the bridegroom tried a few times and finally broke off the marriage. Which made Yiqing Luo dispel this idea. Based on my analysis, I feel that Devil Palace and the impostor's marriage, the motive should be to lure out Yiqing Luo, which is me. Yiqing Luo guessed, at the wedding venue, that impostor had been testing me several times, possibly suspecting my identity. Or perhaps, to be more accurate, someone is making use of the marriage ceremony to prove that Yiqing Luo is in the devil region. Because, if Yiqing Luo was really in the devil region, hearing the news of the overlord marrying Devil Palace Lord, based on her character, she would definitely come to the venue, and if she didn't flip the place upside down, she would absolutely not give up. So when Devil Palace heard that Yi Qing Luo's current identity, which was Dr. Mu Yu, wanted to go to Devil Head City to snatch the bride, they started to suspect that Dr. Mu Yu was Yi Qing Luo. Hence, there were a few rounds of testing after that. DMO Xian's eyes sunk. Then, the person who lured out and wanted to verify, is. The two of them exchanged glances and spat out 3 words at the same time: secluded palace. Except for secluded palace. There wouldn't be anyone who, in order to verify, to lure her out, would go through so much trouble. Furthermore, before the connection, Jiang family's aristocratic elders were so anxious to stop her from entering the Devil region. There was a possibility that this Devil region hid a huge secret of secluded palace. That was why secluded palace was so worried that Yi Qing Luo would appear in the Devil region. Something which made secluded palace so concerned and afraid. She had 0 interest. But if the Devil region had already got involved with secluded palace, then Nine's appearance, and earlier when DMO Xian mentioned that Overlord was in the Devil region, then it would be completely exposed. On the other path, the fake DMO Xian and fake Yi Qing Luo who attracted secluded palace's firepower. Secluded palace would definitely speed up the Devil region's actions. Don't worry. DMO Xian saw the worried look on the young lady's face and his dark red thin lips curled up slightly as he smiled warmly. With the acute senses of the Palace of Darkness, it's only a matter of time before they discover that the 2 people heading towards the other road are imposters. Even if the Palace of Darkness finds out, they will not be able to guess our current identities. At the wedding, Yi Qing Luo's performance in front of the fake overlord's probing had already successfully dispelled Devil Hall's guesses. Adding on to the fact that DMO Xian appeared as Yi Qing Luo's husband. As long as the 2 of them could control themselves, they would not arouse any suspicions. However, if the 2 of them wanted to find the mystic dragon's lair, it would be much more troublesome. There would probably be countless pairs of eyes staring at them from all around the demon domain. Yi Qing Luo tugged on Nine's tail again. The furry touch made her restless heart calm down. If it really has something to do with the Palace of Darkness, we can investigate what kind of shocking secrets the Palace of Darkness is hiding here. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and took a look at DMO Xian. I somehow feel that secluded palace is very concerned about the devil domain. DMO Xian was about to say something. Suddenly his dark red lips stopped his words. Following that, his deep eyes took a look at Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo instantly understood. Chapter 51-21. Someone was here. And at this moment, the only person who would come would probably be the battalion, Demonic Palace. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled slightly as she casually lowered her eyes and her vision fell onto Nine. Her fingers were rubbing Nine's body. And when Demonic Palace stepped into the palace, what she saw was this scene. An imperceptible look of astonishment appeared on her cold face, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. She stared at the 9-tailed fox in the young lady's hands. That palm-sized soft 9-tailed fox was wrapped around the young lady's fingertips, like an adorable pet. Who could tell? That was the accompanying war pet of the Overlord, the one who brought about endless massacres the moment it appeared? If it wasn't for the fact that she had seen it with her own eyes. Demonic Palace probably couldn't believe that the 9-tailed fox which was rubbed flat in the young lady's hands was the one and only sacred beast 9-tailed fox in the world. Devil Hall's suspicious and deep contemplative gaze sized Yi Qing Luo up from head to toe. The Overlord's only war pet, and also the symbol of the Overlord's great mercy. What it represented was the Overlord's great mercy face. But now, this was totally humiliating the Overlord. But the 9-tailed fox was obviously enjoying it, totally not feeling the humiliation of being teased as a pet. What was the relationship between this young lady and the Overlord? How could she be so familiar with the 9-tailed fox? Demonic Palace, what's the matter? Just say it. A clear voice that did not contain much emotion rang out. Demonic Palace regained her senses as she met with a pair of azure blue eyes. She couldn't help but shiver slightly, as though there was a chill running up from the bottom of her feet. Her exquisite brows creased tightly as she kept her emotions in check. Who are the both of you? Demonic Palace walked in and sat opposite Yi Qing Luo. Her gaze was extremely sharp. She even emitted an invisible pressure. Probably with the intention of forcing Yi Qing Luo to answer the question. But facing Demonic Palace's overbearing manner, the young lady's brows were delicate and gentle. She casually grabbed one of Nine's tails, swinging it in her hand as she said, "Who are we? Lord Demonic Palace should have investigated clearly, so why bother asking?" The Demon Hall did not refute. He raised his chin slightly and said, "People of the immortal world, what is your purpose in coming to my demon region?" Her words showed that she had done a thorough investigation of their identities. Young Master Chao of the Chao family, and Mu Yu, who was not favored by the Chao family. The Demon Hall had not only investigated their identities. Even their social circle was thoroughly investigated. He did not find any connection between them and Dizun. She really couldn't understand it. How could the man who had been described as a god by the various realms be so familiar with this couple? Yi Qing Luo raised her pink lips with a smile that didn't look like a smile. Purpose? Didn't my husband already pass through? Why doesn't Lord Devil Palace understand? The girl's tone was soft and gentle as she addressed him respectfully as Lord Devil Palace. But in the ears of the Demon Hall, they could only hear a thick sense of mockery. It was especially ear-piercing. Yi Qing Luo paused for a moment as her smile became even more radiant as she continued, "We're here on behalf of the Overlord." Before the Demon Hall opened his mouth, the young lady continued in a serious manner, "Don't ask me what we're here for, the Overlord didn't tell us." The words that were in the Demon Hall's mouth were stuck in his throat. That cold and solemn face was filled with gloomy clouds. However, the young lady seemed as though she couldn't see it. Chapter 51-22. She even smiled brightly at Demon Palace. "Don't forget, Sir Demon Palace, you're keeping us here not to question us, but to repay our gratitude." The young lady's long and narrow eyes were filled with radiance. Demon Palace's expression sunk even further. Yi Qing Luo was fearless as she continued, "So, Sir Demon Palace, why don't you talk about your motive?" Demon Palace's expression congealed. "What motive do I have? I'll have to ask Sir Demon Palace about this." The young lady intentionally emphasized on the word, "sir." It was obviously a form of respect. But from the young lady's words, there was an inexplicable sense of sarcasm. Demon Palace's face turned cold. "I don't understand what you mean. I thought Sir Demon Palace came up with all sorts of questions, so you're going to be honest with us." Yi Qing Luo clicked her tongue as she shook her head. "Since Sir Demon Palace wants to continue acting dumb, then treat it as if I've never asked. Be honest." Demon Palace murmured these 4 words as a cold glint flashed past his eyes. "What can you tell me?" Yi Qing Luo tilted her head as she propped her chin as she pondered seriously. "Perhaps I can tell you, where is the real Overlord?" The cold glint in Demon Palace's eyes intensified as a glint of resentment flashed past. Was this young lady doing this on purpose? She almost got married to the fake Overlord. How would she dare to meet the real Overlord? Wasn't it embarrassing? Did she still have any face all right? Demon Palace seriously suspected that this young lady was humiliating him. "Perhaps we can help you achieve what you want." Dmo Xian opened his mouth calmly, cutting off Yi Qing Luo's teasing words. His gaze was indifferent. "What does Demon Palace think about what I want?" Demon Palace sneered. "Then tell me, what do I want?" "Youth, power." Dmo Xian's reply was very straightforward, without any hesitation. His deep black eyes were as dark as a deep pool, and the devil region. When Dmo Xian mentioned the first 2 words, Demon Palace's expression had already changed. When the last 2 words were spoken, her brows were tightly knitted as she stared at Dmo Xian with some probing and suspicion. "On what basis do I believe that you have this ability?" "You have no choice but to believe." Dmo Xian replied indifferently, "You have no other choice." Such a nonchalant attitude was simply arrogant in front of the arrogant devil hall. However, the demonic hall did not do anything. She clasped her fingers together and her body tensed up. She was trying her best to suppress her anger. Only when his emotions had stabilized did he speak coldly. I have many choices. Why did I choose you? What a joke. If there were so many choices, the both of us husband and wife wouldn't have appeared here. Dmo Xian lifted his eyelids slightly. What's Lord Devil Palace's decision? Silence. There was dead silence. After an unknown period of time. In the end, it was the demon hall who spoke, breaking this strange atmosphere. She asked, what do you want to know? The secret of the Nether Palace. In the demonic domain. Dmo Xian's deep eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at the demonic palace. When these words left his mouth, the woman froze for a moment. She pursed her red lips tightly as the haze in her eyes dispersed. I don't know what you're talking about. You can go back and consider it carefully. By then, you can tell me your answer. Dmo Xian was neither fast nor slow, as though he had already expected the demonic palace's reaction. Chapter 51-23. It was this kind of nonchalant attitude. On the contrary, it made one feel that what demonic palace's answer was not important to him. As though everything was within his control. Demonic Palace didn't know why, but she felt that the man in front of her wasn't as obedient and harmless as he looked. He wasn't just a god realm aristocrat who had nurtured such an imposing manner. Just a gaze or a simple syllable. That was enough to shock her. This imposing manner. It was innate. And there was an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Somehow she felt as though she had seen it somewhere before. Demonic Palace pursed his lips tightly, his cold and gloomy face was filled with complicated emotions. After that, he turned around and left without a word. Until he was far away. Yiqing Luo carried little Nine and stood up. Are you so sure that she will tell us everything she knows truthfully? She won't. Dmo Xian stretched out his hand towards her. His obedient and harmless face wasn't as cold and emotionless as it was tainted with a gentle smile. You can only believe half of her words. So she will definitely choose us, right? Yiqing Luo walked over and buried her body into his arms. Dmo Xian smiled. Her choice isn't important. Right from the start. Dmo Xian didn't believe Demonic Palace at all. But if Demonic Palace was willing to say a little, he would be able to deduce many things from it. But even if Demonic Palace wasn't willing to say, at most it would just be more troublesome for him. In fact, it was indeed as what Dmo Xian said. That night, when Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian were already resting, a creak sound was heard outside the window. Demonic Palace snuck into the room. Yiqing Luo, who had just laid down, what happened in the day had already made her mentally exhausted. Now she wasn't even allowed to sleep properly at night. Wasn't this Demonic Palace too energetic? It seemed that she, the bride, was the most tired in the day. Luckily the both of them knew that they were surrounded by spies, so they slept in their clothes. When she heard the sound, Yiqing Luo had already sat up and leaned against the headboard as she glanced lazily at Demonic Palace. I say, Sir Demonic Palace, you're a dignified Sir Demonic Palace, isn't it a little inappropriate to climb into our room in the middle of the night? The moonlight was like water, and the Demon Palace, who was dressed in a crow-feathered black robe, stood in the room as a pair of icy cold beautiful eyes stared fixedly at Yiqing Luo. The young girl yawned. Her posture was very indifferent. You should at least consider it. We are husband and wife. It's really inappropriate for you to climb the window without saying a word. But, after all, the Devil Hall Lord's wedding was called off halfway through. He doesn't understand this logic. I'll reluctantly forgive you. The girl's voice was soft, and her tone was languid. Every single word stabbed into the heart of the Demon Hall. The Demon Hall was so angry that his complexion turned extremely unsightly. Under the dim light, he looked extremely malevolent. She clenched her fists tightly, her killing intent bursting forth. A clear voice suppressed all the undercurrents in the room. Has the devil hall thought it through? Dmo Xian lit a candlestick and sat on the chair, which was shrouded in a layer of velvet light. The demon crown prince suppressed his anger and walked over. This crown prince does not know much. These words indicated that she had agreed to Dmo Xian's conditions. Devil region. More than half of the forces belong to secluded palace, right? Dmo Xian didn't beat around the bush as he asked directly. The demon hall muttered to himself for a moment, yes. This wedding, I'm afraid it's arranged by secluded palace? Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly as she asked with a smile. Trash 7th young mistress, Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Trash 7th young mistress, Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 51-24. Devil Hall's cold eyes sunk as he took a look at Yiqing Luo, not really wanting to answer her question. However, Dmo Xian had no intention to speak again. It was obvious that he wanted her to answer the girl's question. The demon royal highness pursed her red lips and coldly said, yes. Yiqing Luo put on a curious look. Then do you know that the groom is a fake overlord? The young girl's face was delicate and sweet. When she blinked her long and narrow eyes, she looked completely harmless. He seemed to be asking casually. The demon crown prince felt his heart being stabbed again. He suppressed his anger and said, this crown prince does not know. Then, how did Lord Devil Hall get to know and fall in love with that fake overlord, to the point of getting married? Yiqing Luo's face was filled with gossip. The demonic sovereign frowned and looked at Lin Moshuan. This sovereign is here to discuss cooperation with young Master Chao. However, the man had no intention of opening his mouth. That pair of eyes that were as blue as water stared at the young girl with doting eyes. It seemed that as long as the girl was happy, he wouldn't have any objections. In other words, if the Devil Hall wanted to discuss things properly, they would have to go through with it. He had to satisfy the girl's curiosity. The demon princess's fingers tightened as she replied, I and that person only met for the first time when we decided to get married. In other words, there was no emotional foundation at all, and they were going to get married immediately. Yiqing Luo sat up straight and scooped Nine up from the side, hugging him in her arms. Look at it in detail, the marriage between you and that fake overlord from Gloomy Palace. The demonic palace was silent for a moment. He stared at the nine-tailed fox in the girl's arms for a long time before he slowly spoke about the marriage. The Gloomy Palace and the Demon Hall had colluded long ago. The reason was that the Gloomy Palace had promised the Demon Hall to help her rule over the Demon Realm and become the one and only ruler of the Demon Realm. Just a few days ago, the Palace of Gloomy Shadows suddenly came looking for her. He wanted her to marry Dizun, and he even announced it to the entire Demon Realm. He wanted everyone in the Demon Realm to know about it. The Demonic Hall did not agree at first. But the Anyo Palace tempted her with the identity of a venerable sovereign. In this world, which woman did not want to marry a venerable sovereign who was like a god? If the Demon Realm could ally with the Imperial Palace, with the help of Dizun, her status would definitely rise along with it. It would be even easier for him to achieve his goal. In the end, the Devil Hall agreed to marry Dizun. It was at that time. This was the first time she had been in close contact with the legendary overlord. The demonic palace knew that there must be a reason why the Palace of Gloomy Shadows asked her to marry Dizun for no reason. After that, there was news from the Demon Phoenix continent that someone was planning to travel thousands of miles to the Demon Head City to snatch the bride. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness ordered her to keep a close eye on the person who wanted to kidnap the bride. Hearing Devil Palace's words, Yiqing Luo touched her chin as she lowered her eyes in deep thoughts. The words of the Demon Hall confirmed her previous guess. The Gloomy Palace was using this wedding ceremony to lure her out. Especially when this identity of hers had turned the Anshu Hall upside down in the God world, and killed an elder of the Jiang clan. Now, he had come to the demon domain to kidnap the bride. It was no wonder that the Palace of Darkness would suspect her. After understanding these matters, Yiqing Luo put on a solemn expression as she looked towards the Devil Hall. Lastly, I want to ask a very serious question. The Devil Palace frowned as he looked at her. Yiqing Luo maintained her solemn expression as she said word by word, you really don't have any other thoughts towards Dizun? Devil Hall. The corners of her eyes twitched as she didn't want to answer Yiqing Luo's question as she turned her head towards Dmo Xian. Chapter 51-25. Young Master Chow, I've already answered everything that needs to be answered. Shouldn't you show me your sincerity now? Dmo Xian finally had some reaction. He glanced sideways, his clear blue eyes were emotionless as he met her gaze. He asked indifferently, do you know the final plan of Abyss Palace? Demon Palace frowned, before asking me questions, shouldn't you show your sincerity first? Dmo Xian continued, once Demon Head City takes control of the demon region, do you think Abyss Palace will let you live? If Abyss Palace wants to take my life, let's see if they have the chance. Demon Palace's eyes turned sharp. No. Dmo Xian's red lips curled into a mocking smile. Demon Palace lowered his eyes to hide the turbulent waves in his eyes. She wasn't sure. As for Abyss Palace, she didn't know much about them. Even if she wanted to investigate, she couldn't find anything. Abyss Palace was too mysterious. Especially the person behind the scenes. Even after working together so many times, she had never seen the person behind the scenes. If the other party really wanted to quietly take her life, in fact, it wasn't like he didn't have a chance. So, she had always been wary of Abyss Palace. She wouldn't completely trust Abyss Palace. Especially, the Palace of Tenyu even found a fake venerable emperor to marry her. This was totally pushing her out, using her as a tool. To let her publicize her marriage ceremony with the Dmo Xian. To spread it to the ears of the real Dmo Xian. Wouldn't she be the one to take the blame in the end? She absolutely believed. The gloomy palace would definitely not help her at all. She was afraid that Abyss Palace was planning to kill her with a borrowed knife. I exposed the fake Dmo Xian's identity, stopped you from getting married, and gave you a chance to live. Is that not sincerity? Dmo Xian's eyes were calm. His tone was indifferent, without the slightest fluctuation of emotions. Yet it gives one a powerful and convincing feeling. Demon Palace actually had a kind of, the feeling of, his words are very reasonable. The Demon King did not retort. He said coldly, I don't know much about what you want to find out from me. After all, the Palace of Gloomy Darkness has never trusted me. Yiqing Luo was very clear about Palace of Abyss's sinister and cunning nature. He didn't expect this demon hall to be able to get any good news from the Dark Netherworld Palace. However, after all, he was the Lord of Devil Head City's Devil Hall. They had brains too. In the process of working with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness, he would find many clues that would be beneficial to him in case the other party betrayed him. Therefore, the Demon Hall definitely had a lot of information about the Dark Nether Palace. The Demon Hall said, although I'm not too sure why the Gloomy Palace chose to help me unify the demon domain, I do know some things. Previously, you asked me about the secret of Tenyu Palace in the demon domain. I guessed that it should be considered a secret of Tenyu Palace. Under the enticement of the Netherworld Palace, the Demon Palace agreed to cooperate with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. With the help of the Dark Nether Palace, they indeed managed to subdue a few large factions without much effort. Very quickly, they invaded the hidden forces of the other 3 demon continents. After tasting the sweetness, the Demon Palace was assured, as they completely threw themselves into the cooperation with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. But as 1/3 of the forces in the demon domain were in their hands, the Palace of Gloomy Darkness gradually retreated from the battlefield. He would only provide assistance from time to time. Chapter 51-26. It seemed as though they were intentionally leaving her hanging. As though they were telling her, without the Gloomy Palace, she was nothing. subtly influencing her thoughts, attempting to control her thoughts. For the demonic palace to be able to sit in their current position, they naturally weren't fools. After a few similar actions, she sensed something amiss. She had always been curious about the real motive for the gloomy palace to help her take control of the devil region. After that, she started to investigate. There was one time when the gloomy palace came forward to help solve a powerhouse's problem. The demonic palace personally took action and discovered that the gloomy palace had established a secret powerhouse in a secluded area in the devil region which even they, the demonic palace, didn't know about. After a few rounds of investigation, the demonic palace discovered an extremely strange matter. That secret powerhouse's location would be secretly transported over 100 cultivators by the gloomy palace's disciples every day. But they had never seen those cultivators appear. Yes, cultivators. In the devil region, everyone they saw were from the devil region. The energy they used was different from the outside world's profound energy. It wasn't that the devil region didn't allow outsiders to step in. But the gloomy palace inexplicably transported so many cultivators over and over again. Were they intending to make use of the outside world's cultivators to form an army to invade the devil region? There was this thought. The demonic palace didn't act rashly to alert the enemy as they continued to feign civility with the gloomy palace. But they continued to investigate in secret. In the end, they more or less discovered something. For example, those cultivators, after wave were sent into the secret powerhouse, none of them survived and their corpses didn't even have cherry blossoms. Another example was that every time a cultivator was transported into the secret powerhouse, there would be a sound of chanting incantations. The demonic palace didn't dare to investigate too deeply in case they were detected by the gloomy palace. After listening to the demonic palace's secret powerhouse, Yiqing Luo was playing with Nine's furry tails as she asked puzzledly, "Where is that secret powerhouse at? Why not bring us over to take a look?" The demonic palace's beautiful eyes glanced at Yiqing Luo as her voice was filled with ridicule. "Perhaps Mr. Chow can take a look. But if we bring you along, I'm afraid before we even get close, we will be detected by the people from the gloomy palace." Yiqing Luo tilted her head, vividly displaying the image of an ignorant young lady. "I have my husband to protect me, what's there to be afraid of?" After that, she smiled like a flower and looked at Dmo Xian. "If we are discovered by the people from the Palace of Darkness, at most we will just destroy the secret base of the Palace of Darkness. Right, husband?" The demon hall sneered. "What do you think that is? Do you think you can destroy it just because you want to?" These words had just left his mouth. Then, she heard a clear and mellow voice say one word in a gentle and loving manner, "Okay." The demonic palace. Forgive her, who had her marriage broken off, for not understanding such feelings. She flicked her sleeves and spat out 3 words, "Vanquish Mountain." Then, he turned around and dashed out of the bed, disappearing from the room. Yiqing Luo clicked her tongue. So boring, totally unable to take the teasing. "All right, he has left, you should take a rest." Dmo Xian got up and returned to Yiqing Luo's side. He flicked his sleeves. The window was closed, and the candle was extinguished. He pulled her into his arms as he laid down to rest. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes as she recalled the demonic palace's words in her mind. "What do you think the Palace of Darkness is up to?" Dmo Xian's mellow voice floated down from the top of her head, as gentle as a feather, as it tickled her heartstrings. "Perhaps there are quite a number of Palace of Darkness's hidden secrets hidden here." He laughed lightly. "Won't we find out tomorrow what secret it is?" Chapter 51-27. Yiqing Luo's little head wiggled restlessly. "Somehow I feel that you seem to know the secret of the Palace of Darkness." Dmo Xian pressed her head. "Want to know?" "I can't guess it, my heart is so stifled that I can't sleep." Yiqing Luo used her head to bump against his palm as she spoke coquettishly. The man laughed softly. His chest heaved up and down. His hand gently covered the back of the young lady's head, curling her soft fine hair as he spoke in a warm voice. "I'm just guessing and have no evidence. But I think the secret of the Palace of Darkness is related to the mastermind behind the Palace of Darkness. His lips curled, perhaps, in the Devil region. We will be able to meet the mastermind behind the Palace of Darkness who had been hiding in the dark. Yi Qing Luo's eyes widened as her little head lifted up and met his eyes. What you mean is, the mastermind behind the Palace of Darkness is in the Devil region? MNDMO Xian nodded. Perhaps the reason why the Jiang family's aristocrats stopped us from heading to the Devil region. Yi Qing Luo clicked her tongue as her face was filled with astonishment. We've been trying to find out where the mastermind behind the Palace of Darkness is hiding. I'd not expected to actually hide in the Devil region. If it wasn't for the fact that we followed the profound flame Dubhe map to the Devil region, we might never discover this point. Wait. Yi Qing Luo's teasing expression congealed. She frowned. The profound flame Dubhe map directed us to the Devil region, and the mastermind behind the Palace of Darkness is also in the Devil region. There shouldn't be any connection, right? DMO Xian had no intention to satisfy her curiosity as he once again covered her head with his broad palm and pressed her into his embrace. All right, sleep. I'm curious. If you don't tell me clearly, I won't be able to sleep. Yi Qing Luo still wanted to struggle. But the man whispered a threat into her ear. Yi Qing Luo decisively cowered as she obediently shut her eyes. The next morning, the Devil Hall was here again. Yi Qing Luo sincerely felt that this woman didn't need to rest at all and was so energetic. She was suspecting if the Devil Hall had taken a fancy to her, Chao Yun, so they kept sticking to her. She expressed that there was a possibility. After all, whether it was before or after the disguise, her man was so outstanding that she couldn't close her legs. You guys want to go to the Devil Extermination Mountain? This was the first thing the Devil Hall said after they arrived. Yi Qing Luo was leisurely eating the breakfast that the servants had brought up, and feeding little Nine at the same time, without even raising her head. Why? Lord Devil Hall also wants to go? Yes. The Devil Hall replied straightforwardly. This Highness wants to go with you. Go and inform them. Yi Qing Luo raised her head at this moment as she looked towards the Devil Hall, her eyes filled with ridicule. The Demon Lord's face darkened. Since I have already agreed to help you, why would I inform the Gloomy Palace? This is called grasping with both hands, stable. Yi Qing Luo replied with a beaming smile. Don't tell me that Lord Devil Hall isn't thinking in this way. The Demon Royal Hall's brows twitched, and he frowned ferociously. Even if that was what she thought, she would never admit it. However, this young lady's words were very choking. The Devil Hall walked directly to the dining table and sat down as he raised his hand to pick up a white steamed bun, speaking calmly. Only I know the exact location, so it's more stable for me to bring you there. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head, and after taking a look at him, she lowered her head to give little Nine a tail. The young lady's soft voice was filled with a smile. Then I'll have to trouble Lord Devil Hall. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Lord Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh Miss who likes trash. Lord Overlord, please be gentler. Chapter 51-28. Just like that, the Demon Hall's action of taking a bite of the steamed bun froze. He didn't know whether to swallow it or not. His expression was extremely ugly. Why did she feel that? Had he been tricked by the girl? Yi Qing Luo looked at Devil Hall's expression as she couldn't help but gave a low laugh. After the meal, Yi Qing Luo and DMO Xian planned to set off. The demonic hall had already ordered people to prepare a demonic ship. Yi Qing Luo looked at the devil ship in front of her, which was even more exquisite and luxurious than Madame Huang Xi's, as she clicked her tongue. Are you certain that heading to Devil Extermination Mountain in such an ostentatious manner will not be detected by the secluded palace? Since the forces of the Dark Nether Palace had already infiltrated the demon region. In that case, he would definitely deploy a large number of informants. This was especially so for this partner, the Demon Hall. They would definitely pay more attention to it. They boarded the demonic ship and headed towards the Devil Destruction Mountain. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness would definitely notice it, right? The demon crown prince leaped into the demonic ship. His cold voice contained a mocking tone as he said, "This crown prince is not that stupid." Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian exchanged glances. After that, Dmo Xian stretched out his hand and wrapped it around her slender waist, bringing both of them onto the devil ship. The two of them had just steadied themselves. The devil ship was already moving and floating in midair. The demon royal stood in front of them and said, "The fake venerable sovereign has fled to the southwest. I want to capture him alive and interrogate him about the reason why he pretended to be a venerable sovereign and married me." That understatement made Yiqing Luo raise her opinion of the Devil Hall by a notch. Southwest. In the direction of Devil Destruction Mountain. However, the purpose of the demon ship was to catch the fake venerable sovereign. The Devil Hall needed an excuse to leave Devil Head City. Now, the excuse of being cheated into marriage was just right. Not only did it dispel the Palace of Gloomy Shadow suspicions, but it also gave him a chance to leave Devil Head City openly. The speed of the demon ship was extremely fast. Devil Extermination Mountain was a little far from Devil Head City. However, with the reinforcement of the demonic ship, they arrived at a place that was half a day's journey away from Devil Destruction Mountain. Of course, it was impossible for them to directly head towards the Devil Destruction Mountain. If they were to approach Devil Destruction Mountain openly, they would not be able to do so. Even if they were here to catch the fake venerable sovereign, it would definitely raise the vigilance of the Dark Palace. Half a day's walking distance was just right. After the Demon Highness got off the demon ship, he led the demon guards and rushed into the castle town to capture the fake venerable sovereigns. It caused a huge commotion. On the other side, dressed in long black robes, the veiled trio had already stealthily headed in the direction of Devil Destruction Mountain. It was already dusk when they arrived at the castle where they had captured the fake sovereign city. When they finally arrived at Devil Destruction Mountain, the sky was already dark, and the blood-red moon hung in the sky, as if it was dyed with fresh blood. The blood-colored moonlight made Devil Destruction Mountain appear sinister and treacherous. It was as if the entire mountain range was covered in a layer of faint blood-colored light. The Demon Destruction Mountain is known as the land of extreme negative energy in the demon domain. The Devil Hall's voice was cold as he spoke in a low voice. "Very few people would come here, so there will definitely be many dangers along the way. Don't cause too much of a commotion." These words were obviously directed at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo nodded with a beaming smile as she held Dmo Xian's arm tightly with both hands. "I will follow my husband well and will not drag you down." The Devil Hall looked at her coldly as he led the way in front. The Devil Destruction Mountain, which was known as the land of extreme negative energy, was indeed surrounded by Yin Qi. And this Yin Qi was different from ordinary Yin Qi. It was a kind of hair-raising feeling, as if the entire body was filled with a cold Yin Qi. An even more exaggerated description would be, like numerous venomous snakes, entangling their bodies and drilling into their bodies. Yiqing Luo acutely sensed it. This Yin Qi was mixed with an undetectable, profound Yin Qi. Seventh Miss Who Likes Trash, Lord Overlord, please collect it gently. Seventh Miss Who Likes Trash, Lord Overlord, please collect it gently. Chapter 51-29. Although it was very light, very light. However, it was indeed the aura of mysterious Yin Qi. However, he was unable to determine the source of the mysterious Yin Qi from this faint aura. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes narrowed slightly, as her little hand, which was tightly clasped with Dmo Xian, pinched him. Dmo Xian lowered his eyes and met her gaze. Apparently, Dmo Xian had already detected this trace of profound Yin Qi. The presence of dark Yin Qi meant that there were indeed traces of the Tenebrous Palace in this Demon Destruction Mountain. At the very least, the Demon Hall did not lie. At a time like this, why are you still looking at each other affectionately? The Demon Palace lowered his voice and said coldly, the entire mountain could be the territory of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. We have to be careful at all times. Yiqing Luo nodded smilingly. All right, no problem. The Demon Hall felt like it had punched cotton. When faced with the young girl, all the mockery felt as if it couldn't hurt her at all. On the contrary, she was infuriated. Devil Hall kept his emotions in check and couldn't be bothered to look at the two people in front of him. He turned and entered the Devil Destruction Mountain. Yi Qing Luo felt that Devil Destruction Mountain's environment was extremely strange. The entire mountain range was filled with lush forests and trees. The trees were luxuriant and intertwined with each other. The scarlet moonlight cast mottled silhouettes through the branches and leaves, making the scene look somewhat strange. But, on the lush mountain range, it was full of vitality. But Yi Qing Luo totally didn't sense any signs of life. Yes. The entire Devil Destruction Mountain did not have a trace of life. Instead, it emitted a bone-chilling aura of death. Mixed with the yin qi, there was a sense of déjà vu that made one's scalp tingle. There was something strange about this mountain. They sneaked all the way into the depths of the mountain. The deeper they went in, Yi Qing Luo could feel that the yin qi was so dense that it almost drowned her. No matter how prepared she was. At this moment, her delicate body could not help but tremble slightly. What the hell is this place? Had she stepped into the rhythm of hell? How could there be such dense yin qi? Yi Qing Luo stuffed herself into Dmo Xian's arms. Hugging her Xian, her body warmed up a little. Dmo Xian naturally detected Yi Qing Luo's abnormality at the first instance. He looked down at the person in his arms and wrapped his arms around her slender waist. Profound qi spread from his palm and poured into the girl's body. Take out the jade pendant that Feng Liqiong gave you. Dmo Xian whispered into her ear. That jade pendant. When she had just arrived in the divine world, Feng Liqiong had specially asked Ji Wuhua to put it on her because she couldn't withstand the spiritual energy of the divine world. She had always been wearing that jade pendant. Yi Qing Luo hooked out that piece of jade from her neck. The man's hand gently held one of her hands. Yi Qing Luo only felt a chill on her fingertips. Then, a drop of blood fell on the jade pendant. The warm dark force wrapped around her fingertips. She couldn't feel the slightest bit of pain in her fingers before she was pitifully taken into the man's palm. The jade pendant that was stained with a drop of blood instantly absorbed the drop of blood. Yi Qing Luo keenly sensed that the jade pendant vibrated in her palm. There seemed to be a surge of dark light. The next moment, her body was completely covered by the light of the jade pendant. The dense yin qi in the surroundings totally didn't affect her at all. It was as if she had been completely separated from the aura of the Devil Destruction Mountain. This jade pendant, it could actually be used in this way. Yi Qing Luo stared at the jade pendant in her palm as her eyes revealed a faint smile. That little uncle of hers was really a person who was hard on the mouth but soft on the heart. He had obviously said that he had delayed her existence because of Feng Gu. Seventh Miss Who Likes Trash, Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Seventh Miss Who Likes Trash, Overlord, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 5130. But every single time, he would still stand on her uncle's side, thinking for her sake. Even when she had just arrived at God Realm. They had never interacted before. But in order for her to be safe and sound in God Realm, he placed this jade pendant on her. What are you trying to do now? In front, Demon Palace was already several hundred meters away from them. When she heard that no one was following her, she turned her head and saw the both of them standing on the same spot. She suppressed her anger and turned back. Her sinister beautiful eyes looked at Yi Qing Luo impolitely. We've only walked halfway and you can't take it anymore? Such a delicate girl, you should have waited in the Demon Palace castle right from the start. Why are you dragging us down? Yi Qing Luo glanced at Demon Palace. Looking at Demon Palace's expression and the way he looked at her. As though he didn't notice the profound glow on her. In that case, the light on her body, only she could see it? That would be the best. Otherwise, the flickering profound light on her body would easily expose her position. The longer we walk in the forest, the higher the chances of being exposed. Demon Palace saw that the both of them didn't respond and her tone turned colder. If you don't really want to infiltrate the Palace of Darkness's secret forces to settle the matter, we can go back now. I'll pamper you, you can be delicate. The man's expression was calm, his voice was cold. This sentence made Demon Palace stunned for a moment before she realized that he was replying to her previous sentence, the humiliation towards the young lady. Demon Palace's expression sunk instantly. Dmo Xian hugged the young lady again as he walked forward. Demon Palace's expression twisted for a while before she clenched her fists tightly as she followed up angrily and unwillingly. Along the way, nothing was said. Dmo Xian couldn't be bothered with Demon Palace, while Demon Palace was infuriated. Yiqing Luo, on the other hand, was researching the profound glow on her body. She was so happy with it that she had no time to tease Demon Palace. They continued walking forward for another hour or so. The surrounding dense forest became more and more lush. The ground was covered with countless vines and weeds. There was no place for one to step on. It looked as though it had been barren for a long time and no one had stepped on it. After all, it was a place with extreme negative energy. Generally speaking, no one from the Devil Domain would run to the deepest part of Devil Destruction Mountain. Yiqing Luo surveyed the surroundings. He could sense that the aura of death in the surroundings had grown denser. There was not the slightest bit of the vitality of nature, which was lush with leaves and overgrown with weeds. Yin energy lingered above his head. Dmo Xian narrowed his eyes. There's an array in front. After passing through the formation, we will arrive at the secret force of the Gloomy Palace. The demonic palace stopped, however, outside the formation. There is usually a team of Deathsworn from the Palace of Gloomy Darkness guarding it. She paused for a moment, and the expression on her face became somewhat complicated. Those death warriors are very strange. They're impervious to swords and spears, impervious to fire and water. Most importantly, they can't be killed at all. Yiqing Luo instantly knew what the Devil Palace was referring to. That was a real death army, an army of corpses. Previously, she had found a way to deal with the undead army. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness no longer used this kind of corpse secret technique. Who would have thought that it would actually appear here? He used the undead army to guard the outer perimeter of the formation. Looks like the Palace of the Gloomy Abyss really valued this secret power. These death warriors are extremely sharp and possess extraordinary strength. The demonic palace didn't know that Yiqing Luo and the others knew the ability of the death warriors as they continued on. Just in case, let's split up. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways at the demonic palace as her long and narrow eyes rose slightly, as her lips curled into an ambiguous arc. All right. Chapter 5131. Seeing Yiqing Luo's straightforward reply, Devil Palace's brows creased. This young lady had probably been spoiled rotten by her husband and totally didn't know about the current situation. The reason why she said, act separately, was to intentionally let Yiqing Luo know that if she was alone, she totally had no ability to protect herself. What she wanted to see was Mu Yu revealing a terrified expression, hugging Chao Yun tightly and acting coquettishly, not willing to separate. But she had not expected the other party to agree readily. Indeed, a young lady who was ignorant of worldly affairs. Devil Palace laughed coldly to herself. She wanted to see if Mu Yu would be the first one to be discovered and caught by the Palace of Darkness after they split up. In case Chao Yun stopped her, Devil Palace rushed to speak first. This palace's suggestion to split up isn't really to split up but to set off from one end to avoid being discovered by the Death Warriors. Moreover, if we split up, if one of us is discovered by the Death Warriors, the other two can still think of a way to rescue him. As she said that, she looked at Dmo Xian. Of course, we can't split up too much. Do you have any objections? Devil Palace's words were obviously asking for Dmo Xian's opinion. The man's seemingly obedient and harmless face was calm. His clear blue eyes casually glanced at the Demon Palace, and then moved away without a care in the world. Finally, it fell onto the young lady. His gaze softened in an instant. His dark red lips moved slightly as he replied indifferently, "My wife will make the decision." Devil Palace. Another mouthful of dog food. Yi Qing Luo winked at him as she beamed. "What Lord Devil Hall said is very forceful. If the three of us are together, if we're discovered by the Death Warriors, then we'll be wiped out at the same time. If we were to split up, it would reduce the chances of being discovered." She held Dmo Xian's hand and said, "I'll be careful, husband, don't worry." Dmo Xian nodded his head slightly, and without giving the Devil's Palace another glance, he walked straight ahead. Yi Qing Luo also skipped towards another direction. By the time Devil Palace reacted, she was the only one left. Devil Palace stared at the direction where Yi Qing Luo left as his fists clenched tightly as his sinister beautiful eyes shot out sharply. Next year today would be Mu Yu's death anniversary. Although Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian were acting separately, in reality, after the two of them left the Demon Hall, they had already quietly met up. What a joke. This was a place that hid the greatest secret of the Dark Palace. How could Dmo Xian possibly allow her to act alone? What he said just now was just him purposely ignoring the Demon Hall. As for the Demon Hall, Yi Qing Luo didn't trust him. Who knew if the Devil Hall had intentionally lured the two of them here? No matter what the demonic palace's goal was, she didn't trust the Demon Hall at all. Therefore, splitting up was the best choice. Most importantly, she had the teleportation secret technique. There was no need to be as careful as the Demon Hall. The place where the two of them met was only a few dozen steps away from the formation. Yi Qing Luo could clearly feel the lingering profound yin qi around her. This formation. It was a forbidden spell formation. Yi Qing Luo really couldn't understand where did the Palace of Secluded Darkness got their hands on so many messy forbidden arts. Was he not afraid that he would be punished by the Heavenly Tao for defying the heavens too much? Forget it, let's not count on the Heavenly Tao. Previously that so-called peace envoy said something about maintaining the realm's balance and restricting the realm. In the end, didn't he meet with some huge incident and disappeared without a trace? Chapter 5132. It was better to rely on herself. Rather than rely on anyone, she might as well rely on herself. Amen. And her Xian Yi Qing Luo hugged Dmo Xian's arm as she looked at the array in front. Inside the array, a thin mist pervaded. She could faintly see a few people standing upright in the middle of the array. No, they couldn't be called as people. Just their outer appearance, shrouded in a black robe, standing upright in their designated place, like a scarecrow, not moving at all. Yi Qing Luo knew. That was the dead body army. Once the both of them took half a step closer to the array, those corpses which were like scarecrows would definitely attack them together. Yi Qing Luo pinched Dmo Xian's arm. Can you use the blink movement secret art to bypass the array directly? Dmo Xian glanced sideways as his slender fingers pinched her delicate nose. This array is a little strange. If you use the blink movement secret art rashly, there is a possibility of falling into the array and it will still alarm those corpses. His vision looked towards the array, then he released the hand which was holding the young lady's waist. Let me try. Yi Qing Luo walked behind him, with a fangirl look. In fact, she didn't have the time to see clearly what Dmo Xian did. She only saw. Her man took a step forward. After that, the bamboo-colored brocade robe fluttered without any wind, making a fluttering sound. And then, she could only see that bamboo-colored robe, as hazy as green smoke. Or as though pieces of green bamboo broke out from the ground, growing rapidly. She even smelled a fresh bamboo fragrance. After that, the next moment, her waist was locked by the man, and the man's deep voice floated down from above. All right, next. I'll have to trouble my wife. This was it? What on earth happened earlier? Why did it end before she could appreciate her Xian's heroic bearing? Her forehead was poked by the man's slender fingers. Why are you in a daze? Yi Qing Luo blinked, staring at Dmo Xian. Are you doing it on purpose, not wanting me to see how powerful you are? When the man heard that, he couldn't help but burst out laughing. That obedient and harmless face made one feel even more pity for him. Between his azure blue eyes, there seemed to be ripples of water that were slowly spreading. Yiqing Luo bumped her face against his chest. This man was trying to seduce her again. Oh, she just had to fall for this trick. Even if his face was a face that had been disguised. But because it was her, he couldn't resist it no matter what. Yiqing Luo resigned herself to her fate and wrapped her arms around the man's tight waist. Then, he teleported. Two figures instantly leaped into the formation. The formation was still surrounded by a thin mist that gradually swallowed the two figures. No one noticed. The moment the girl's figure entered the formation, around her neck, her fingers, her wrists, and her ears, suddenly, a faint light shone. It was extremely faint and fleeting. When the blink movement's secret art settled down, Yiqing Luo sensed that something was amiss. She subconsciously wanted to tighten her grip around Nan Rao's arm. But he grabbed nothing. Her expression froze. Xian? In the surroundings, there was no sign of Dmo Xian at all. Not only did she not see Dmo Xian, the place she was in now was also an illusory darkness. The surrounding was like a solidified thick black fog. This kind of darkness was different from the darkness in the dark. She could clearly see the thick black fog around her. But there were large patches of darkness, which made her feel like she was imprisoned in the darkness. She couldn't see the road ahead clearly. This place, what was this place? Why were she and Xian separated? Chapter 5133. Lass. Suddenly, a familiar and gentle voice rang in her mind. This voice made Yiqing Luo surprised. Old Man Song? Old Man Song, who had been cutting off contact, could actually sense her now. Yiqing Luo raised her wrist and looked at the azure dew bracelet. What's going on? I couldn't contact you during this period of time. Old Man Song's tone was filled with worry. Did something happen? Yiqing Luo succinctly explained that she couldn't contact him after she reached the devil domain. And the reason why she appeared here was explained. Old Man Song muttered to himself for a moment. His tone was solemn. Your situation, there's a possibility. You and the Overlord were involved in a different array. Different array? Yiqing Luo frowned, but that array, Xian had already dealt with it. Maybe, it's an array within an array. Old Man Song couldn't be sure. Of course, the array within the array doesn't mean the array within the array. It's all done by the Palace of Darkness. Yiqing Luo understood the deeper meaning in his words. What you mean is, this place originally had an array, and the Palace of Darkness had covered it with another array. And the array that Xian resolved just now only resolved the Palace of Darkness array? You can explain it that way. Old Man Song's tone was solemn. An array that even the Overlord didn't detect. It's definitely not simple. Be careful. Which meant she and Dmo Xian were involved in another array. And that array separated her and Dmo Xian. This array was set up by the Palace of Darkness? Or, even the Palace of Darkness didn't know about it? Or, the array set up by the Palace of Darkness on the surface was actually to conceal this array? The more Yiqing Luo thought, the more she felt that things weren't simple. And, there was another thing that made her feel strange was, after being involved in this array, she and Old Man Song could actually contact each other. However, the battle pets in the pet space were still as quiet as a dead silence. Still unable to sense the existence of the battle pets. So, in this array, only the azure dew bracelet regained its connection with her. This place, I've never seen it before. Old Man Song carefully sensed the surrounding atmosphere, and, this black fog, gives me an extremely evil feeling. Evil? Yiqing Luo was stunned. Are you sure? I'm not sure. Old Man Song sighed softly. The aura here is too strange. This old man has an ominous premonition. He had just finished his sentence. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly thumped. Then, her feet left the ground, and her whole body fell weightlessly. The falling speed was extremely fast. Yiqing Luo could only hear the whistling sound of the wind. She even took the opportunity to look down. Below them, there was a huge whirlpool, and huge waves were swirling around them. Within the vortex, a thick layer of condensed black fog covered it. That solidified feeling. It made Yiqing Luo feel that when she fell into the whirlpool, she would be badly injured. The thick, majestic black mist made the atmosphere and environment even more terrifying and gloomy. Yiqing Luo also felt, the black fog below seemed to have stretched out a pair of long hands, grabbed her feet, and pulled her into the whirlpool. What the F***ck was going on? Following Yiqing Luo's inner howl of rage, her whole body fell into the whirlpool. Chapter 5134. The stifling pain in her chest made Yiqing Luo feel that it was difficult to breathe. The stifling feeling made her eyelids heavier. And that icy cold big palm that grabbed her feet kept twisting upwards, as if it was imprisoning her tightly. The icy cold touch was like a needle, piercing into her body. It was so painful that she wanted to groan out. But she couldn't make any sound between her breath. Yiqing Luo tried hard to maintain her consciousness. But that cold bone-piercing, evil and malicious yin qi made her unable to resist at all. Vaguely, she heard Old Man Song's urgent call. She could even feel it. On her body, the jade pendant's profound light shield was constantly contending against that yin qi. Yiqing Luo was like being squeezed between two kinds of forces. Not knowing how long she had fallen, the strong suction force finally stopped. It was at this moment. A huge force filled her limbs and bones. This surge of power was completely sudden. Yiqing Luo didn't have time to react and suddenly felt pain all over her body. Finally, she couldn't bear it. Her pink lips opened and spat out a painful cry. And it was this cry that came out. She suddenly opened her eyes and sat down weakly on the rain. What entered her eyes was not the thick black from before, but a dazzling white. Dazzling white. Like a bright light, piercing straight into her eyes. Yiqing Luo raised her hand in pain and blocked the white light, until she adapted to this light. She then slowly stood up from the ground. She was now in a huge. Yiqing Luo wasn't sure what kind of building was in front of her. Or, it was like an extremely old castle. So old. Even the castle's gate was an oval stone gate. What was this place? Yiqing Luo looked around vigilantly. White light shrouded the floating. There was only this castle in front of her. There was nothing else in all directions. Moreover, the surrounding atmosphere was a little cold and damp. He could feel waves of cold wind sweeping past his bare feet. It seemed like something was touching her feet. Yiqing Luo tentatively took a step forward. The sound of water splashing could be heard from beneath his feet. Startled, she looked down. Only then did he realize that he was standing on a vast expanse of white water. Every step she took, the water rippled and spread out in all directions. She was stunned and somewhat shocked. She wasn't sure if it was just her imagination. Why do I feel like the castle was calling to her, enticing her? It was as if there was an inexplicable attraction that made her want to head towards the castle unconsciously. That castle, what secrets were they hiding? Yiqing Luo pressed her aching brows as she took a look at the castle and looked at the vast expanse of white surroundings, as well as the rippling lake surface beneath her feet. It seemed that she could only head towards the castle in front. No matter what secrets were hidden in that castle. Or was there any danger? It was better than standing here and waiting for death. He didn't know when the lake would go crazy. If he couldn't stand up, he would drown in the lake. She had to think of a way to leave this illusory array. If she and Ah Xian separated, Ah Xian would definitely be anxious. Yi Qing Luo clenched her slender fingers as her narrow eyes fixed on the castle in front for a moment. Finally, she took a step and headed towards the castle. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.